My father, he did what he could, but he wasn't there. And you stepped in and you gave me that.
Steve Harvey has a pretty interesting relationship with his adopted son, Jason. After Steve married Jason's mom, Marjorie, he welcomed Jason with open arms. But even though he really stepped up for him, things weren't exactly perfect back then. So what happened? And what does Steve and Jason's relationship look like now? Steven's on and off-screen relationship with his wife and children is something a lot of people really admire, but things apparently aren't as perfect as they seem to be. In a shocking revelation made by sources close to the family, it was reported that all is in fact not smooth within the Harvey clan. One source revealed that Steve might be playing favorites with his children, and on top of that, his kids are reportedly not on the best of terms with each other. These revelations were fueled by the fact that sometime before the source made the allegations, Steve's adopted son Jason had been off the grid for a while, and he only ever came online occasionally to share some posts on his Instagram. A lot of people suspected that this may have been due to a family feud with his siblings. The source also revealed that contrary to how Steve solved family matters on TV, he dealt with his own family issues by simply buying gifts for his family members, which is a method he has consistently preached against using on his show. There were also allegations that Steve's wife Marjorie no longer trusted him as the amazing stepfather that he painted himself to be. This, if true, is far from how Steve's relationship with Marjorie used to be when he first adopted her children. Steve himself wrote a book about the story behind their amazing marriage. He gushed about the first time he and Marjorie met and also shared the cutest story about how it was love at first sight. It all happened when Steve was performing at a comedy club in Memphis. In his words, as soon as Marjorie walked in, he knew that she was the one and he professed his love to her right there. What made it all the more interesting was that the feeling was mutual and Marjorie decided to give him a chance. But unfortunately, they weren't able to make things work at the time and they ended up getting married to other people. Luckily, they reconnected several years later and they actually got married. Right after that, Steve went ahead to adopt all of Marjorie's children, Lori, Megan, and Jason. The news about it went viral with people questioning Steve's choice. Upon his adoption of Marjorie's 3 children, Steve became a father to 7 kids. He had his first 3 kids with his first wife, Marcia Harvey. These were his twin daughters, Carly and Brandy, and their brother, Bodrick. The couple, however, ended up getting a divorce because Steve reportedly cheated on Marcia when she was expecting Bodrick. Their separation was reportedly really hard on their kids. In fact, Brandy and Carly opened up to Steve years later, and they said that they were heartbroken when he left. Things were so bad that the only way they could console themselves was to believe that Steve, despite being their father, didn't belong to them. He belonged to the world. Their brother Bodrick felt the same way. He once opened up on how hard life was without having his dad full-time in his life until he was 16. So later, when all his children opened up to him about it, Steve stated that he had regrets about leaving them. However, the drama didn't stop there. In 1996, Steve married his second wife, Mary Lee Harvey, and it was rumored that Mary was actually the other woman for his affair in his first marriage. She later gave birth to twin Harvey, who was Steve's 4th child. Their marriage lasted about 9 years before things ended between them. Unfortunately, their separation got very messy, which kind of affected Winton. Mary alleged that she discovered a private letter from Steve's mistress, and she posted a video to YouTube revealing her side of the story of their marriage and divorce. Meanwhile, Steve was trying to win custody of their son Winton. The rift between him and Mary lasted until 2017, when Mary filed a $60 million lawsuit against him on the grounds of several allegations, one of which included breach of contract. She even uploaded more videos to YouTube claiming that Steve hurt her mentally and physically while they were married, and she threatened to ruin her ex-husband's reputation and public image. But ultimately, she won custody of Winton. So when he married Marjorie, he already had 4 children of his own, but he still lovingly chose to adopt her kids. What's interesting though is that Steve's biological children didn't exactly agree with the adoption. In an interview with Shannon Sharp on his podcast Club Shay Shay, Steve shared how fiercely his daughters were against the idea. Steve's own daughters, as well as Marjorie's son Jason, weren't happy about the blending of the 2 families. Steve said they actually asked for time to get to know each other more. They also begged him to push back the date of the wedding to avoid any bad blood between them, but Steve somehow found a way to make it work between his children, and he eventually married Marjorie, and he has been a father to Jason and his sisters ever since. The situation was likely more significant for Jason, seeing as he had no father figure in his life before Steve. His biological father, Jim Townsend, was reportedly sentenced to life imprisonment based on charges of selling substances just a few years after Jason was born. Luckily, President Obama offered him a presidential pardon 27 years into his sentence, leading to his release. Immediately after he regained his freedom, Jim had a word or two to say to Steve. In his viral interview with blogger Tasha K, Jim hinted that Steve did not fit Marjorie's usual type at all. He also mentioned a story Steve had once told about how 13-year-old Jason accused Steve of not being his father. In the incident, Steve then asked Jason where his real father was and told him that since he married Marjorie, he was his son too. That statement worked and it got Jason to accept him right away. However, his real father Jim had a problem with it. He called Steve insecure and told Tasha K that Steve was only saying that because he wasn't as rich as him, and he revealed some more insane information by claiming that Marjorie allegedly called him 3 days before her wedding to Steve. Many people, however, disregarded the whole expose Jim made because they felt he was just being bitter about Marjorie and Steve's relationship, and they weren't wrong. In fact, his whole expose focused on Steve and Marjorie's marriage while he barely mentioned his son Jason. This made everyone appreciate Steve even more for being Jason's father figure when he had none. Steve later admitted in an episode of Family Feud that bonding with Jason and his other children was hard because they were all trying to get to know each other. He also shared the simple truth that while some of his children were close and some were just cordial, they managed to make it work during family gatherings and vacations. Steve's reportedly put extra effort into his relationship with Jason, and now things seem to be going well between the two. In an interview with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Jason acknowledged that Steve was a fashion icon. He also revealed how Steve supported him in his business, Yerva Footwear, which is a shoe company he started in 2013. Steve was also present when Jason tied the knot with model Amanda Harvey, and he has also been enjoying the grandpa life with Jason's children, Rose, Noah, Ezra, and Joey. So although their relationship is complicated and wasn't always the best, the two seem to be in a better place these days. But what do you guys think about all this? Do you think it's good that Steve insisted on adopting Jason? And what do you think about the comments that Jim made? Let me know in the comments below.